Am I the a-hole for disowning my adoptive son since he chose his people over us? Am I the a-hole for leaving my fiance after I learned there were strippers at her bachelorette party? Am I the a-hole for insisting we get a paternity test before I sign the birth certificate? Would I be the a-hole for breaking up with my boyfriend because he doesn't wash his butt? Am I the a-hole for disowning my adoptive son since he chose his people over us? I'm male 44. My husband is male 40. We've been married for 20 years, together for 22, and our adoptive son is male 24. He's black, and we're not. I'm only mentioning this because it's relevant to the story later. This does not take place in the US. Let me give a little background to the situation. About 19 years ago, me and my husband had been driving on the highway back from a small vacation when along a particularly long stretch of road, absolutely no buildings around, only a ton of grass and hills as far as the eye could see, we spotted a little boy just sitting by the side of the road. Like I mentioned, there was nothing around for miles and no cars close to where the boy was. So we decided to stop and see if everything was okay. When we got closer to the boy, let's call him Jason, fake name, it was very easy to see he was dirty and malnourished since the only thing he had on were some diapers. He was so small, it didn't look like he could be older than 3. Later found out he was actually 5. We asked him why he was alone and he told us that mommy and daddy put him here and told him to wait. There was no cell signal in the area, so we did the sensible thing and brought him back to town to the nearest police station. To make a long story short, CPS was called. We discovered his parents were some druggies that were on the run from a felony. The only other relative Jason had was his grandmother, who was very mentally ill and couldn't take care of him, and we felt bad. He went into foster care soon after, but we felt bad for the kid and kept in touch with his caseworker. I had, still do, an extremely well-paying job at the time and could easily afford a decent lifestyle for a small family. So after a few months of discussion between ourselves, the caseworker, and some bureaucracy, we formally adopted Jason. Now, onto the situation. About 3 years ago, Jason's parents were released from prison on parole. They contacted him not long after in hopes of reconnecting. Prior to that, they'd sent him a few odd letters here or there, but nothing really substantial. At first, he was hesitant to talk to them, but ended up caving and meeting them for lunch one day. I'll admit that a part of me was a bit jealous and apprehensive of what could happen, but I could see that it really was something that my son wanted to do, so for his sake, I swallowed those and supported him through it. It wasn't very long, about 3 months I think, that he started to pull away from us. At first, I chalked it up to him being excited to actually talk to his bio parents after so long, talk about what had been going on in his life, spend some time with them, etc. It started to bother me when he'd cancel plans with us last minute because mom had an emergency or dad really needs me to help him with something today, or whatever other excuse he could come up with. He used to come over to our house at least once a week, call every day or so, but now we were lucky if he even came by that month. Again, I thought that this was just temporary and that he was just excited and soon enough he'll start spending more time with us again. We were overjoyed when he invited us over to dinner one night. It was supposed to be a family gathering, us and his bio parents and his wife, girlfriend at the time. I wasn't exactly keen on meeting the people that had left my son for the dead on the side of the road, but decided to give them the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe they'd atoned and changed. Besides, he's our son and we loved him. We had to at least try. To say the dinner was a disaster is an understatement. His bio mom was extremely rude to me and my husband the entire night, making passive-aggressive, homophobic, and racist remarks every chance she got. His father was much the same. It all came to a head when she straight up called us the F word and threw a glass at my husband. A screaming match followed and we left soon after. The next day, Jason apologized profusely and promised they'd never do something like that again. I told him neither me and my husband wanted to have anything to do with them and would appreciate if he understood that. He seemed to, but continued to pull away the next few months. And that leads to what happened last week. Jason proposed to his girlfriend about 9 months back and has been preparing for the wedding since. Of course, we were overjoyed for him, but a few months went by and no invitation came. Every time we would ask Jason, he would say they hadn't sent them out yet and changed the subject. Well, last week, my husband saw a Twitter post from one of Jason's friends, his groomsmen, that went a few weeks back with the invitation in hand. We confronted Jason about it the next time he came over, only for him to drop the bomb on us that we hadn't been invited. We asked why, and he said his parents didn't want us there and wouldn't come if we did. I was fucking furious. I asked him how he could choose those pieces of trash over us, why they were so important. What did we do to deserve this kind of treatment? His answer: they understand me better. They're my people. At this point, my husband was crying, asking how could he do this? I've only ever been truly angry a few times in my life, and this moment managed to top all of them. I threw him out right then and there and told him to never come back, that he wasn't our son anymore. I spent the rest of the day hugging my husband and trying to calm him down. The next day, I canceled everything we'd paid for the wedding, which was basically everything important, even the ones we couldn't get a refund on. Hold on, so this son had them pay for everything but then didn't invite them? Whoa. Of course, Jason had the gall to call and scream at me, asking how I could do that to him. Where would he find replacements for a wedding that was supposed to happen only a few months from now? I told him I didn't give a shit and said, maybe you should ask those two leeches you call parents for some help. Damn. Good answer. Good answer. 19 years. 19 fucking years of my goddamn life spent raising and loving a kid that I considered my own son, only to be treated like garbage, giving blood, sweat, and tears so he could have a good life, all the love we could possibly give, and that's what we get as a reward. As for why I'm asking if I'm the a-hole, some people have been calling and messaging us, mostly Jason's friends and a few of our family members, calling us heartless and monsters for doing what we did to him. And that's honestly got me questioning if I went a bit too far in anger. After all, parents are supposed to love unconditionally, right? But if so, how do we ever get over something like this? How can we deal with this feeling of betrayal? Are we justified in feeling like that? OP did add a comment with some clarifications. 1. Did Jason go to therapy? Yes, he did. It was mandated by CPS, even though they don't really enforce it. And we knew that a kid in his situation would need professional help for a long time. 2. This is not in the US, so why are you saying CPS? Of course, I don't mean the US CPS. I'm just using the acronym to talk about the CPS we have over here because at the end of the day, it's easier than constantly saying our version of Child Protective Services or something similar. 3. What does his fiance think of all this? I don't know. We haven't really talked in a while and I've been avoiding looking at my messages. We'll probably take a look today, if only so I have an idea of what's been going on. 4. 2 gay men married and adopting a child in 2004/2005. It's been a bit weird that some people still think that you need a piece of paper that recognizes you and your partner as married for you to use the title. Nevertheless, for the sake of clarity, me and my husband did not legally marry in 2004. The max we could do at the time was enter a legal partnership, which we did. We did have a small private ceremony and have considered ourselves husbands ever since. Did legally marry as soon as it became legal though. As for Jason's adoption, the foster system here is an absolute mess. Now, at the time, 2 men adopting a child would have been really hard, yes, but not impossible, especially since his caseworker was in favor of it after we'd had legal guardianship of him for a while. I have an extremely well-paying job, and over here, even if you can barely feed yourself, there's a good chance you'd be able to adopt. There's a ton of kids in need, and the system is oversaturated, so it wasn't that hard to get it going. 5. You're mad just because you weren't invited to the wedding. After rereading my post, I can see why some of you think that, and I'd like to clarify my feelings. Before I continue reading, I just want to acknowledge how asinine it is to just be like, bro, why are you so mad at not getting invited to the wedding of a child that you raised for 19 years? Hey, person who wrote that, are you fucking stupid? Not being invited to the wedding isn't the reason as to why I'm mad. It stings, sure, but I'm mad at Jason for the things he said and the complete lack of consideration he had for me and his father. We were the ones to raise him, to love him. We were there when he first rode a bike. Every single one of his robotics competitions, his piano recitals, his first breakup, his disagreements with friends, the sleepless nights helping him study for exams, etc. I love him with all my heart. He's my son, and he let his bio parents treat us the way they did and didn't even have the decency to tell us we weren't invited to the wedding. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, and one that really hurt. Did he socialize with other black people / had black mentors? Yes, he did. The city we live in is very racially diverse, so it's not like we even had to go out of our way so he could socialize with them. 7. You were paying for the wedding but didn't know when it was going to happen. Of course, I knew the date. When I mentioned an invite, it's because we were waiting for the formal invitation he would send out. Jason had complete control over the guest list since he was the one in contact with the planner. We only paid for it. 8, they got out of prison at the same time. I'm not sure about the specifics of their case since it wasn't really any of our business, and we weren't really involved besides giving a written testimony of finding Jason. But I do know that they were charged with the same sentence, and like I said in my post, they are out on parole. I've seen some pretty easy not the a-holes in my life, but this one takes the cake for the most not the a-hole I have ever seen in my entire life. That's the most disrespectful thing I think I've ever seen. Honestly, it's so brave and so strong for OP to have the ability to cut this person off the way they did, because that's hard. The son deserves it. I want to sympathize with being adopted is probably a really hard thing that a lot of us won't know the inner conflict that comes with choosing the parents that raised you versus the parents that made you come into this world. But for him to slime his parents like that, that's just unacceptable. Am I the a-hole for leaving my fiance after I learned there were strippers at her bachelorette party? We have a 29 male OP, 29 female ex-fiance. Me and my fiance were together for 5 years. We should have been married now in normal conditions, but I broke up with her and canceled the wedding 2 days before it because they invited male strippers to the bachelorette party. I am personally not a fan of these parties, but reluctantly agreed after both groom and bride side confirmed we would keep it simple. I told my ex-fiance I am not comfortable with strippers or other kinds of crazy things. She agreed. I also told my friends if they were to do a stupid thing without me knowing, we would have problems. I stayed at my friend's summer house and chilled there by the pool, did some WoW raids and played board games. My ex-fiance and her friends went to a restaurant, then rented an Airbnb. There was no problem during the night, and next day I asked how things went. She and her close friends said it was really chill and good. We returned to the city center after that. I encountered another bridesmaid that day when I was shopping for a bracelet for my ex-fiance for her upcoming birthday. I asked that girl, how's everything, as we were in the same department at the college but rarely talk now. She is closer with my fiance than me. She said it's going good and last night was crazy with all the strippers. After saying that, she looked uncomfortable. I asked her about the details, but she was not willing to tell much. I think she realized she should not have talked about it. I laughed, said goodbye, and left. I confronted my fiance and she seemed surprised about it. She was denying it first, then told me nothing crazy happened and one of the bridesmaids invited strippers. I reminded her that it was a strict boundary for me. I asked about the details, but she said there was nothing much with strippers, just solo dances, and that's it. I told her I need some time to think. Almost all of the bridesmaids messaged me, ensuring nothing happened. When I was on my way back home, definitely not coordinated. Things happened after that, but in the end, I decided to break up and cancel the wedding. I lost some money since it was only 2 days before the wedding. Things are not cool right now. My head is messed up. I got criticism from everyone and no idea about what to do. My sister told me to see a therapist to process my thoughts and feelings. That is what I'll do next. Some mutuals suggested to me that I should reconsider things and stop being so whiny about such a small thing. I do not think it's such a small thing, especially when they all tried to hide it from me. I think the real issue here was the hiding. For a talk to have happened that was like, hey, this is a strict boundary for me, and for you to actively let it happen and then try to hide it, big red flag. This update is fresh. 8 hours ago. My problem wasn't that I was blindsided by her friends, but her lying. Every bridesmaid told different things and none of them gave details about what happened. I believe you can understand it just shatters the trust and makes you think there is something going on. There were a lot of you're the a-holes and I thought I should apologize. One of the bridesmaids reached out to me last evening. I suspect she saw the post somewhere and recognized it. I knew my fiance was having problems with her friend since last week, but I did not know the extent. Apparently, my ex-fiance and her close friends blamed the girl that I encountered at the mall for everything. This divided the group and led into a verbal fight. I will skip the personal details here, but in the end, she told me my ex-fiance and other bridesmaids got sexual with the strippers. My fiance was the only one who had boyfriend slash fiance slash spouse, at least monogamously, there to my knowledge. Also, I was told by her that my ex-fiance was not blindsided with stripper invites. She was happy to see the strippers and was relieved she had an excuse. I do not have proof for all of these, but I got a short video of girls making out with strippers. One of the girls is my ex-fiance, and that's enough. She's been trying to reach out to me since we broke up. I confronted her again at first, she denied it again. Then it became we just touched. Then okay, we kissed too. Okay, I gave him a hand job. Finally, I was coerced into doing things by others as I pressed on. I just blocked her after the last part. I did not see any need to learn further. I was hurt already, but learning that I got cheated on hurt more. I am not sure if it's the full truth even now. I will never know, but all I can say is it hurts. I will go to a therapist to not carry my luggage to my next relationship. I lost $15,000 from the wedding related things and need to focus on filling the hole for a while. Yeah, I agree. The biggest problem was the lying part. If they're lying about this, what else are they lying about? If it's that easy for them to lie to you, even if they're not lying about anything currently, that lying is going to bleed into the marriage. Definitely a bullet dodged. Am I the a-hole because I told my sister that I wouldn't help her leave the state to get a medical procedure she is actively against until she told our parents? My 19-year-old sister is a hardcore evangelical. I was until I got to university. University has not opened her eyes at all. Everything is still black and white. She recently discovered that while abstinence is the only guaranteed effective birth control method, you actually have to practice it. She did not. And since all other forms of birth control are a sin, they didn't use any. Fucking idiots. She came to my apartment to ask for help. My apartment where, according to her, I am living in sin and fornicating. Both accurate facts that I take pride in. I asked her if it was going to be a virgin birth. She screamed at me that I was being an a-hole for mocking her beliefs. I said I was mocking her hypocrisy. Our state just banned abortion even if the health of the mother or the fetus is in danger. It's ridiculous. I told her that I would help her out. All she had to do was tell our parents why I had to take time off work and she has to take time off school. She said that they would disown her. That is maybe true. I don't know. But they didn't speak to me for a year after I moved in with my boyfriend. I wouldn't actually make her do this. I love her even though she is an idiot. I took her and we came back. She is okay physically, but not so much in her mind. She is having a hard time reconciling what she did. I kind of feel bad about rubbing her beliefs in her face before agreeing to help her. I think overall, not the a-hole, because at the end of the day, even though you had your little quips, which I think were merited, you helped out your sister. They're pretty much asking if they're the a-hole for throwing out this empty threat. And I want to go with not the a-hole for the threat and if they had followed through with that threat. Because at the end of the day, I think what OP is doing is just pointing out the sister's hypocrisy and holding her accountable not only to her actions, but to her beliefs, which I think a person like this absolutely needs. I almost wish that OP had held her to this because I think that would have been good for her. Maybe people will disagree. Maybe I'll get attacked by Bible thumpers, but I'm going with not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for insisting we get a paternity test before I sign the birth certificate? My girlfriend and I believe in ethical non-monogamy. We aren't saying it's right for everyone, but it works for us. I work in town and have several partners for when she is working. She works at a huge construction project on the West Coast and flies home for 1 week after working for 2. Since the men outnumber the women, they're like 30-1. She has no problems finding partners. Recently, she has gotten pregnant. We are always careful and use protection, but I realize that isn't always 100% effective. I am excited for a baby and happy we are starting a family. However, I don't have any interest in paying to raise someone else's child. I told her that we need to get a paternity test. She said that I was the father. I said that was awesome. I just needed proof. She said no. I said that without proof, I wasn't signing the birth certificate and that I would be moving out, so I could not be said to have acted as a parent. She thinks that because we are in a relationship, I need to step up. Like I said, I have no problem raising a child that isn't mine. I just won't pay for the privilege. I know we have somebody in chat who is in a non-monogamous relationship. I want to hear your thoughts. My thoughts are, if you open the avenue where you're having sex with other people and that person gets pregnant, I think it's a requirement to get a paternity test. I'm just like putting myself in the shoes here. If I'm in a ethical non-monogamous relationship with a primary partner and that primary partner gets pregnant, in her shoes or mine, I want to make sure that that kid is not somebody else's. Totally fair, especially with the added element of ethical non-monogamy. They really should have discussed what they would do if something like that happened before it happened. Even if it didn't matter who the father is from a relationship standpoint, it's good to know for potential medical history. That's a really good point. Am I the a-hole for explaining to my husband he's the reason we keep having daughters? I have 2 daughters and I'm currently pregnant with my 3rd girl. We just found out this morning. On the drive to my husband's mother's house, he explained how he was a bit disappointed about having a girl, but then he said said, I should have expected this because you have 3 sisters. I explained that me having 3 sisters has nothing to do with the gender of our child. He said it's genetics and that I'm the reason for our daughters. I told him that's not how biology works. He said it is. He then went on to explain that his mom only has brothers and his 2 oldest brothers both have 2 sons because his mom's side. I told him that doesn't make any sense because it should be the same for him then. He said no, because both of their wives have more brothers than sisters. He was getting frustrated, but I was just laughing at him. I explained to him that him and his oldest brothers have 2 different dads, but out of his dad's 8 kids, 3 are boys and 5 are girls. The men determine the gender. He said that's not true because the kids his dad had with his mom are all boys. He dropped it and said he'll ask his mom who has a degree in biology. So we get to his parents' house for brunch and he asks his mom if I'm the reason we keep having girls. She told him bluntly that the men determines the gender and it's actually not a 50-50 chance. She then went on to explain that the more of one gender you have, the higher chances that your next child is also going to be that gender. So he asked, is it likely that he'll have a boy? She told him that if he keeps trying, it might happen. He just walked to the car and said he's going for a drive. I received a text from him saying that I didn't have to embarrass him like that. I was so confused. Am I the a-hole? So let me recap. Blame wife for something that isn't her fault. Adamantly and stupidly argue something with no scientific backing. And they ask somebody who actually has the background to have knowledge on this, gets proven wrong, throws a fit, acts like a child, and then blames OP. Yeah, you really hooked a good one there. I just really hope his kids don't turn out as dumb as him. Not the a-hole. I don't even think I really have to argue. Like, would I be the a-hole for breaking up with my boyfriend because he doesn't wash his butt? Before we get into the last story, I just wanted to say thank you for watching the video this far. And if you're enjoying the video this far, if you could hit the subscribe button or follow if you're listening on Spotify, as well as maybe share this with a friend who also enjoys Reddit stories. I appreciate any support, and if you enjoyed the video, I'm sure your friends will too. I recently learned that my boyfriend does not wash his butt in the shower. We were taking a shower together, and I noticed that he applied soap in his hand and gently rubbed his hand over his body. He said that he uses his hand to shower and not a loofah, washcloth, etc. I also noticed that he didn't wash his butt. He said that when he's in the shower, the water rinses over his butt, and that's how he washes it. I tried to be understanding, as maybe his parents never taught him how to properly shower. I told him he needed to open his cheeks and wash in the crack. I thought we'd come to an understanding that he would do so. That all happened on Saturday. Now it is Tuesday, and I've asked him if he has washed his butt since that conversation we had. He said no, that he thought it was nasty to stick his hand in there to wash it. This time, I am starting to distance myself from the relationship. In my opinion, he is a grown man that doesn't practice basic hygiene. In his opinion, he needs time to get comfortable with the idea of it. I can't tell if I'm being too harsh on him or if my wanting to end things is justified. Do I throw away the best partner I've ever had over this? Not the a-hole, under the condition that you've had a conversation with him, telling him how important it is to you for continuing this relationship for him to wash his butt. You can argue till the end of time if that's a good reason or not to break up with somebody, but at the end of the day, the only person it matters to is OP. And if OP is even thinking that this is worth something breaking up with him for, who are we to sit there and be like, you shouldn't do it? This is me reading into relationships too much, but I also think this says a lot about what the boyfriend thinks of your opinion. Because if he's not even willing and open to hear about how unhygienic it is to not wash your butt where you literally shit out of, what else in this relationship is he going to be a stubborn piece of shit about? Give him the opportunity to change, and if he doesn't, bro, go find somebody who washes their butt. If you enjoyed the video and you're looking for more reading Reddit videos that are over 20 minutes, click the link at the top of the description or the videos popping up on screen right now. The members of our community love these videos, and I'm sure you'll love them too.